we're coming up live now.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good. Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran, and of course, we're back with you here. And I'm, of course, joined with my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee, and a special guest today, Danny Pena from GamerTagRadio. Welcome both. How are you guys doing?
Doing great,
Good.
Todd. It's great to be here. It's always great to be on the show with Danny. He's always such an inspiration to us all. Such a great guy.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks for the invite too. It was super last minute, right? The invite.
Yeah, it was.
So,
I mean, Danny, you reached out to us and gave us a preview of your great video documentary that you got coming out here soon. So that's what inspired this and got us all together. It was such a great video that you made. So it's really exciting that's coming out soon, and I think it's going to be something that'll be really, really helpful to a lot of podcasters.
Danny, for folks that don't know you, why don't you do the introduction and give them a little history on the who, what, and where?
Yeah, my name is Danny Pena. I'm the founder and co-host of GamerTagRadio. It's a video game podcast, and we're turning 13 years old on the 25th of this month. And I decided to do something special for our community. I started working on this documentary. It's my first film ever. And it took me like a good almost 2 months, a month and a half to edit this film and stuff. So we're planning to release it first on Twitch. We're going to have like a live stream premiere on Twitch. And then it's going to be available like video on demand on Twitch, YouTube, and other places too, man. So I'm very, very excited. It's going to be totally free. And later on, I'm going to mention how I edited the film because a lot of people are not going to believe it.
Oh, really? So it sounds like some people are going to be like, really? Is it going to be that? Oh, that's cool. So when's this going down?
Yeah, it's coming out the 25th of this month on our birthday. We're having a live stream 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. So yeah, tune in. Twitch.tv/GamerTagRadio. We'll be there.
Rob, I haven't previewed it yet, so what should I expect?
Well, I would say that it goes back in time. It goes back to when Danny first started with this, and it has a lot of family pictures. It has pictures of him when he was a little kid, and it talks about his journey and how he built his audience and how he built his show over the many, many years that he did it. You know, and his connection with Xbox, and that's where I met Danny originally, was when I was working on Zoom, and he was highly engaged in the Xbox community and what was happening there, and was getting connected up with Zune, and I always saw him as, you know, as a great guy, and he'd go out to events, and I know that the Xbox team was all excited to have him there, and it was always fun to have him around. So it's just not surprising that he's gotten to the level of success that he's achieved here. And this video documentary really kind of lays that out about how important people are to creating a podcast and making those people connections, and to really build your community and to build your audience is a one-on-one personal connection game. And Danny, tell us a bit about that. I mean, about that journey as you think back on it.
Yeah, I think that because I used to be a promoter back then for the music industry, and I used to attend a lot of like music events, hip hop events and stuff in Miami and New York. And it was because through that I started meeting a lot of people, and that's how my name got out there in the music industry and stuff. And I was like, man, I'm gonna do the same thing to promote my show. Back in the days, I'll go to random retail stores locally in Miami, just pass out flyers, interview people while they're waiting in line for a game and stuff, and started doing that. Then I started attending events. Sometimes some of them I wasn't invited. I just showed up, talk to PR or the people that's handling, and then we're like, all right, we'll give you a chance. We'll let you in. So that's how I started doing that, man. And throughout the years, it's been helping me big time. And because of that, we build a community. We build a connection with everybody that I met through the gaming industry too, man. So it took a long time, but I think it was the right way for us to get our name out there to the public.
Danny, I've always been a big proponent, and matter of fact, I was talking a little bit about it on a Facebook post this morning, is the brand, building your brand, you as the center focus point of the show and of your enterprise is important, but the GamerTag Radio brand, a lot of folks today, they're doing podcasting, they just podcast, but they don't do any of this other stuff. What do you see out there for podcasters doing that you wish they would stop doing and start doing?
Like I said, get out of your house. I think by you just depending on just a platform like, let's say, iTunes or Spotify, and just record and post and that's it. Yeah, you will get listeners, but I think that when people meet you and see you in person in different events and you tell them about your show, I think that's a stronger connection. It will help you to get your name out there even more. I think that by just depending on your content and just sitting there in your house and recording every week, that's not enough, man. And still to this day, I feel like it's important to me to go to events. I'm going next week. I'm going to Podfest. We're doing a live podcast in front of an audience with my whole crew for the first time in 13 years. We're going to do that, and I'm very, very excited. We're going to have our listeners there from the Orlando, Tampa area. They're going. I'll go to Podcast Movement. Also, all the video game events is happening throughout the year. We always go, and I think that's important, man. I think Dave Jackson said the other day. I was watching his videos on Facebook, and he said, "Look, man, you got to get out of your house, man. Forget about being stuck inside your basement recording, and that's it. You have to get out there, man." So let's say your podcast is about working out. The listeners that are probably going to listen to your show, they're at the gym. Go to the gym. Is your listeners are into comics? Go to comic stores. Go to Comic-Con. There's listeners everywhere. You just got to find your community instead of you depending on them finding you.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I keep pushing that, and and when you talk about it, it makes sense. It's for me. It's Rob and I, obviously, we go to all as many podcasting events as our companies can afford to send us to, but we also go to, from my tech show, I go, like we were just talking before I started the show, I just got back from CES and we're putting all that content up now. And for me, it was more about, CES is dual-hatted. It's about making contacts, number one, people in the industry that I get invites to and get insider information and early releases and products. That's number one. The second thing is building. Getting feedback somewhere.
That was me.
Getting Geek Creed and again meeting more folks and handing my cards out, and really, I understand it. You got to get out from behind the mic and go where your audience and go where your content is.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, man. Totally agree. And look, Todd, throughout the years that you've been attending all these events, all the companies that you met, they see you there. That you got so much content because of that. But if you would just stay in Hawaii the whole time,
right,
you would have not get that contact. So it's important. I think it's very, very important to do that.
I walk into GoPro and the CEO of GoPro comes up and gives me a hug. What? Who gets that? It's a different. You got to go where the content is. So I just we can preach this all day, but Rob, I know you've been hanging out here. Why don't you interject?
Well, I think what you guys are really pointing out is that community is beyond just listeners. Community is on both ends of the spectrum. It's those that can contribute to the value that you're bringing to your audience, that can add to your content. And what you're talking about, Todd, is those relationships, building community amongst those that can provide content to you is also important. And Danny, I wanted you to talk about your experience of early on of getting involved in events and how difficult that was for you early on, because if you're starting out and you don't have a lot of resources, like Todd and I are fortunate, we have companies that support us in doing this. Not everybody has those resources. What are some of the things that you think back on that you had to do to enable yourself to get out and go to these events?
Yeah, when I started going to events, it was very difficult for me to explain to them the type of content that we have, because at that time podcast wasn't even popular, it wasn't even known. So I had to explain to them in an easy way for them to understand. So I would say, okay, we have an internet radio or internet radio show in 2001, and it was really tough because a lot of them gave us an opportunity to like cover their events, but a lot of companies completely shut us down. They were not impressed with the numbers. They were not. They really didn't understand about the show, and yeah, they shut us down. So I talked about this in the movie that, a couple years ago, actually, the first time I went to E3, I went there with my brother. Like, I wasted all my money to attend this event. We also created like media kits. I had like CDs and a bio about us, and I had like our best shows on the CD. And I passed it to every single video game company at E3. We had no appointments, no connection, nothing at all. And a lot of them shut us down, right? And then a year later, everybody started contacting us because they found out that iTunes just added podcasts to their platform. And they were like, man, I remember those guys last year, podcasts. Okay. Then that's how our name got out there slowly, man. So it helped us out. But at first it was tough, man. I think to me, it's just to educate people, man. Because right now they probably know because of the certain shows that's gotten popular throughout the years. But it's just that the first time you talk to them is kind of gonna be kind of hard, man. But it takes time. You got to be patient about that stuff.
But I would imagine it's probably easier now than it was back then, just because this medium is recognized as a significant presence in the media landscape now than it was back then. I know I had the same experience. I was early going to CES back in the early days, and I was doing my radio show, and even bloggers back then weren't even getting into CES with the press pass, and I had to actually print off a article that I had written for an online publication and present it to the desk at CES in the early days, just to get a press credentials to get in and actually show that I had an episode of my radio show where I talked about technology. I had to prove my case in order to get accepted into the press room at CES. But now you look at CES and it's like most of the people that are in there are just doing podcasts or online media, right? So things have changed a lot.
I used to laugh because, and it's an example I even made fun of it during the last event, is the first year that we went with a camera. I had a Sony. It was a prosumer. It had a shotgun mic. It wasn't too bad, but it was this big, and on a tripod, and we're going in to get interviews, and people are looking at you like, who's this little rinky dink operation, and I'm wearing a photog vest. We made our fair share of mistakes, but because all the big crews were coming in with 5 people with monster cameras and a sound guy and a guy that's holding the microphone, and you're looking at them thinking, oh, what are we doing? But over time, that's shifted. So now only the cool kids walk in with a DSLR, with a little rig, and it's a run and go, shoot and go type of situation. And the uncool kids are the ones that are still walking in there with that still big camera that they're still paying for. And with the 5 people they're having to pay to carry all this gear. So the dichotomy of the space has completely changed. So it's, I laugh about that, but it's true. Going to events in the early days, I think when we went the first year, we learned what we need to do. And Danny, we kind of did the same thing. But once you go to the show and you actually produce for those companies, you go in and do an interview, you talk about a new product, or you wait till their product comes to market and you put something out. The door, we get seeked out. I start now getting requests for appointments in October for an event that's in January. And before I would, like crickets, all the way up into 2 weeks before the show. So, they want to see you. But at the same time, we've learned some stuff about PR firms. I'm not a big fan of PR companies right now, but because they try to be gatekeepers. But that's, every show, doesn't matter if you're a tech show, gaming show, but what show couldn't go to an event? There's always some industry event for some
Mm-hmm.
topic.
Mm-hmm. And I tell people this, man, start local. It doesn't,
Yeah.
you don't have to get out of your city or state. Start local, and even the advertisers too, man. Like, I'll mention this. This is a story that I heard a long time ago. Kanye West, when he started producing it in Chicago, what he would do, he would charge his beats for a very low price, right? So he started doing that, and then when his name got really popular locally in the city, that's when he's like, all right, I'm gonna raise the price, and now because of them, they're now telling people about my beats, and then slowly we'll go around. It's just word of mouth, man. To me, word of mouth is like the most powerful thing out there, man. Just word of mouth, man. But he started small, started local, and I think that's how we're gonna grow our show, is start local instead of going like, all right, let me get out of the city and state. Nah, start in your city first, man. That helps.
It does, and that keeps your costs down, and it doesn't make mama, if you've got a wife or girlfriend, unhappy that you're busting the budget.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, what I was about to say too is that, yeah, I made this documentary at first. I just wanted to just give it to our listeners, right? But the more I started working on it, I wanted to educate people that don't listen to our show, don't listen to podcasts, or maybe they want to start their own show, or just want to be content creators. So I did it in a way that it's for everyone. It's not, you don't have to be a gamer to understand this documentary and about us and stuff. So, and another thing too, I really want to mention this. My goal with this movie was, I edited this 100% using iMovie.
Wow.
And Rob, you probably, when you saw it, you probably didn't even notice that at all, right?
No, of course not. No. All right. No, it's terrifically edited. I mean, it's really, really professionally produced. It's what it seems like anyway. Yeah.
And the reason why I did that is to show people that it doesn't matter what type of equipment, what type of program, software you have. What matters is the content. Your content goes out there. People are going to enjoy it. They're going to share it. I didn't mention anything to Rob. Rob forwarded to Todd. Todd hasn't seen it yet. But that every person that's seen it loved it. But I haven't mentioned anything that I edited through iMovie at all.
And I think that's important, is that, I posted just before the show started today. I had a guy call me yesterday, and he's freaking out because he paid a consultant $1,000 to help him get his show started. And I'm just like pounding my head because first of all, the advice he gave him was really bad. And so I spent 30 minutes with him, helping him getting fixed up, and he's squared away now. And I didn't charge him for that. I'm telling this guy, listen, there's no reason for that. There's no reason for you to have done this. There's so much stuff online. You can get information. But I think what we also have too is we have a society now that wants it right now, and they're willing to pay to do it. So, I'm not going to blame the guy for doing that, but part of the art is figuring this out, doing the work, figuring out the grind that you need to do and get the process down. And that's part of the beauty of this whole space. And I know people want to rush to creating content, but sometimes those extra steps gives you time to think and plan and have actions going forward and make sure it's the way you want it, not what someone else thinks it should be. In the beginning, all of us made this stuff up. We didn't know, right? And but I'm excited to see the video, because what it's really going to do is going to give insights to people that I'm assuming, Rob, tell me if I'm wrong, it's going to people insights into, it's not just about creating content, it's the whole process around the content.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing was building community and just really kind of understanding that it's a long-term project too. I mean, Danny, doing your podcast is a marathon run. It's not a sprint, right? So you got to take it one step at a time. You're going to have a lot of ups and downs. You're going to have a lot of disappointments. You're going to have a lot of frustrations, and that was really highlighted, I think, by a lot of the people that you brought into your fold through your process of doing your show, all your co-hosts and the people that were engaged in it, and their kind of testimonials about their experience with you and what they felt kind of emotionally about that process and that connection with you, and how that is an important part too. If you have co-hosts on your show, those are very emotional relationships at times, because you're basically creating bonded relationships with these people, and sometimes they go well and sometimes they don't. So, once you talk about that too, about your co-hosts and about all those testimonials and how that made you feel too, as you watch that and as you produce that show.
Yeah, throughout the years, we have a lot of like co-hosts. Like I started with my brother back in the days. He was very young, and then after that, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna do my own thing," and he stopped. But Peter and Paris, I met them just attending events, us playing video games. I met them online. Paris, for example, I met him before Peter, and he heard about us because he saw a video interview that I was at Microsoft. They were interviewing me about our podcast and stuff. So he was at home sitting now watching the video, and he was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna start my own podcast. This is incredible." Like, he went to Microsoft, he got invited by Microsoft and all these other companies. "Man, I'm gonna start my own show," and so on. So he emailed me asking for advice, asking like, "Hey, how can I create a podcast?" And because of that, we became really close, throughout the years. And then his co-host left. He got a job in the gaming industry, and he stopped. For him, it wasn't even fun anymore because he was doing this all by himself. But I felt like he was always been a great podcaster, right? So I invited him a couple of times on our show, and our listeners like, "Man, Paris should join your show, man. This guy's awesome, and you guys have this connection." And the reason is because we became friends before he joined GTR. Yeah. So he joined, and our relationship even gotten closer because of that too. Especially Pete, my other co-host. He came to one of my random house parties that we had in the past. We were playing Guitar Hero, and we became friends from there. And he was always hitting me up like, "Man, how can I help you with your show?" And I tested him out. I got invited to an event, and I couldn't attend, so I hit him up, and I said to him, "All right, I'll send you to this event. If you record and do a great job, I'll let you be part of GTR." And he was like, "Wow. Are you serious?" Like, "Yeah, don't worry about flights, don't worry about hotels, everything is paid. I trust you," because I know his wife. So I'm like, "Look, I trust you. Just go do your thing." He went to the event not knowing no one. Like, he was super nervous. He's like, "Oh my God, I don't know who's this, developers or producers, PR." He had no clue, but he went there, and he did a great job, man. Then from there, he started being part of GTR and everything. But everything, to me, everything happens for a reason. I think that you have to be careful what you say and what you do online, because you never know who's watching, you never know who's listening. And that's the thing that we learned throughout the years, man. There's people that listen to our show, they never emailed us.
Yep.
But I hear crazy stories because they will email us and tell us certain things that happen behind the scenes. I'm like, oh my God, kids doing presentations about us at their schools. We know this couple that one of our listeners, she has cancer, so she been traveling a lot with her husband. They take their video game systems, they want to travel while she's healthy still, and they listen to our show while they're traveling together, and they send us emails, they send us voicemails because they want to be part of the discussion. There was another, we even have kids from like Dominican Republic or other Latin countries listen to our show, so you got to be careful what you say, man. That's why I feel like I made the right move having the right people to be part of our show, because they also feel the same way about all this, man. So great co-host, man. Shout out to P in Paris.
One thing I found, Rob, is that, I don't want to be pitching my stuff all the time, but I'll be honest with you, building my company and my blogging crew is all everything's come from my audience. The folks that have stuck with me and worked together the longest were people that all were originally part of the, like I call it, the Ohana here in Hawaii, Families Ohana. And I refer to that a lot in my show, it's truly, I really do truly consider the audience part of the family. And if you can do that, if you can relate that way to them and tell them, just be honest, that's a thing. People can smell a fake a mile away. I think that's why I've had, personally, why I've had success too is, you build from that core audience that is a follower already. And Danny's contacts came from folks that he's known was part of his family too, part of his extended family, audience and otherwise.
Yep, so I agree.
Danny, as you think about all your co-hosts, though, what are some of the common characteristics and traits that you looked for in your team, in your co-hosts?
I like people that don't agree with me. I think it creates a great conversation.
There you go.
I think that's super important. Imagine everybody saying the same thing and they agree all the time. As a listener, I find it bored. I find it very boring. So I think having someone that is respectful, because I think that's super important too. And don't take it personal if they don't agree with you. Don't take it personal, man. Have fun. We create debates all the time on our show that even the listeners, when they download our show and they're driving, let's say, to work, or they're listening to their, to the subway or whatever, they feel like they're part of the conversation and they want to debate too. So they'll go and email us, So I think that's super important. Have someone that if you go out on a vacation together, right? And once you guys leave and you miss each other, I think that's the right co-host, in my opinion.
That's interesting. Rob, do you miss me when we're not together?
Oh, totally, Todd. Well, I mean, Todd, you and I get to meet up fairly regularly throughout the years, and I've known you for so long. I mean, I think the first time we met was back in 2005.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a long period of time to know somebody, and I think that's what makes this show work at times is because I do know you so well.
Yeah.
And I've been a host of shows and I've had co-hosts, and I know what it's like to be on both sides of this issue, to be a co-host and to be a host. And so I think, and you're kind of that way too. So we have this capability to understand both sides of this. And that's so important. And then we were, friends before we were competitors too.
Right.
So that kind of, people are amazed by the fact that we're competitors of each other, but we do a podcast together. And especially when we bring Rob Walsh on, it's like, what's going on here?
It even weirds my team out sometimes. They're always like, you and Rob, you guys talk too much. It's just like.
But it's the vibe. At the end of the day, it's all about the vibe.
Yeah.
Man. If you guys get along, then man, I feel like, look, if you have great vibes, great conversation, you'll send that to your listeners, man, when they listen to your show. Imagine you guys hate each other and angry and bored of the podcast. You will send that energy to your listeners too, man. I'm telling you, man, it's that, I feel it's that connection, man. When it comes to audio, it's a strong connection, man, with your listeners, man.
Yeah, I was listening to episode 1000 of the No Agenda Show, or maybe it was 999, one of the two, and Adam Curry told John C. Dvorak to beep off. I mean, it was just, it was like, and I was like, uh-oh. And, and you could tell John was like taken aback a little bit. You can kind of, you almost visualize him getting slapped, right? And they continued on. But it's one of those things where they've been doing the show so long that Adam was mad, and he made John know he was mad, but they're like, they're big boys, so they picked up the pieces and they continued on, right? So I think that's the way you have to be with a co-host. Feelings, and let's be honest. Someone asked me, "Do you listen to any political shows?" I said, "No, I don't." And they say, "Well, why don't you listen to any political shows?" And I said, "Because all the hosts on the shows are always either left or the right. There's no one that does a show that they have two friends that are, one, you have a lefty and a hard righty. And if you had that kind of a show, that type of dynamic, I'd probably listen to it, because then it becomes entertaining, and we don't have enough." And I don't want to drag politics into this show today, but I'm just saying there's not enough discourse. And my grandfather, when he was alive, he purposely, in a group conversation, he would become devil's advocate. If everyone was agreeing, and he may completely agree with the conversation, he would flip a wheel and all of a sudden be like, well, what about this? And then it would just like the whole conversation would explode, you know? And I think that's important. I think you got to have someone that's, if they don't completely are completely separate, then are willing to have an opposite view and being able to play devil's advocate on something. And I think it just makes the conversation better, because guess what? Someone's thinking it that's listening, and they're saying, how come they're not saying that? Why are they all just like giving lip service here? No one wants to listen to a show that's just a lip service show where each host is complimenting each other and agreeing all the time.
It's very boring.
Boring.
Super boring.
Yeah.
You know, it's better to have a a little fight, and then at the end you're all kind of like, okay, that was cool. We cool? Yeah, we're cool. All right.
Yeah, but I also have to give a big shout out, big thank you to Neil Galarte and also Chris Krimitsos, because originally this was filmed for The Messengers, a podcast documentary, because Neil followed me and my crew for a whole week during E3. They also followed me in Miami for like a couple of days and stuff. But it was so much footage that they couldn't put everything in their documentary, you know. So I asked them, is it possible for me to get all my footage and let me edit it myself? It's going to be totally free. I'm not trying to get money, but I feel like I want to share my story to others. Maybe I can inspire people. And at the same time, educate them about podcasts. You know, last year when I went to Dominican Republic to promote the movie, the Messengers over there in the capital, I was there for like a week. And one thing that I noticed, a lot of the people that were there, they were using their phones, but they were all watching videos like on YouTube and Facebook. So everybody knows about Facebook and YouTube, right? Because somebody taught them how to do it on their phone, right? So my goal right now is to do the same, but with podcasts. I want to try my best to educate the people in Latin America and for them to start listening to podcasts, not only in English, but also in Spanish. And I think it will help to build businesses locally and stuff, you know. So next week, I can't mention the name of the location, but we're planning to have a screening of my documentary over there in Dominican Republic. And I'm very excited because I think it's going to open the doors to like a whole new crowd that never heard of podcasts, you know. So I love that, you know, we're here going to events and we're always together, like the podcast community. But I think it's important for us as podcasters to learn, to show, educate people that never heard of podcasts, never heard of of an online show. I educate them so they could also start listening, or maybe they will become like their own content creators, you know. We can't be all stuck in the same bubble, man. I think it's good to go out and let's build it. I think it'll be good for all of us, man, for everybody.
You know, one thing I do a lot now is when someone says to me, they say, well, what do you do? I would do a podcast or on a podcasting company. And I say, what's a podcast? And I say, well, can I show you? And they say, sure. So I say, can I, you have to get some trust here, because I say, like, show me your mobile device. And if they've got a iOS device, I'm like, click on that. And they click on the podcast app. And I said, just, I give them a title. And I said, type that in. And I said, hit subscribe. And they do it. I said, okay, come back to the app later and listen to that show. That's a podcast. And I just show them. It takes 30 seconds. Android may be a little longer because maybe they don't have an app and we have to get them an app. But I use every opportunity to turn that screen toward me and help them click through to show them how easy it is. And once they do, they said, that's it? I said, yeah, that's it. I said, now you got to just hit play and you're good. And the new shows will show up and people are like, they're astonished, you know, they get that.
And they'll get hooked.
Yeah. Like,
once they find that show.
Yeah. And I said, there's plenty more there. You said that you may not be into my show, but you can check other shows out and hopefully they do. But I think it's true. We have to educate and as creators too. We've got so many new creators coming to the space right now. I mean, Rob, I don't know if you're seeing it, but we're seeing there's nothing else can explain it. We're seeing a massive growth of new podcasters coming in. I think we're up. New podcasters come in the space on a day-to-day basis, 25%. It's significant.
Yeah, and I think we're also growing on the listener side too. I mean, with the brings new content, and like what Danny's doing. Danny's reaching out to new potential listener bases. I think all of us really need to think about that a lot more than we are.
Yep.
And I also think that Google's coming to the game, and so Android, I think, is going to become more and more important over the next couple of years. We'll see what happens, but that could open up a whole new listener base for the podcasting space and grow it to where I think it can be. So it's going to take a few years, though.
Now, there's a couple of things I did want to talk about in the show today, and we can come back to Danny's stuff in a few minutes. But I did want to, I put a call out yesterday. Who went to the NPR super secret meeting? All right, so the super.
I don't think that list was very long, Todd. I don't think that list was very long.
I got the impression it was longer than normal. But who went to the super secret meeting? And Rob and I didn't get invited. I think we're persona non grata over there. So if you hear anything, and we've got plenty of people that listen to the show that don't acknowledge that they listen to the show, I'd love an email that at Todd at New Media Show that gives us some insight to what the secret meeting involved and what type of conspiracy stuff we can come up with. So if you went or heard, or maybe it's no big deal. Maybe they just all went out for beers. I don't know. But did you get invited to the super secret NPR meeting, Danny?
No, I didn't get invited. I'm not part of the secret society, so yeah.
well, we're not either. So anyway, so something is happening. It this raises a point that I wanted to bring up with you. The mainstream guys. Let's talk about the East Coast bubble around Boston, New York, and that whole ecosystem of NPR, the Gimlets, all those folks. Do you think the average dude, and I'm going to say average dudes like us, because I think we're average dudes. I grew up on a dirt road. I wasn't born with a golden spoon in my mouth. We all had to do our time to get our our shows grown and everything else. Do you think that the independent podcasters can still break out and build big shows? Do you think that there's becoming such a heavy emphasis press-wise on this East Coast bubble? Do you think it's affecting independence?
No, I don't think so. I think it's important to, so let me go back with the whole hip hop thing. I'm always giving examples with hip hop, but when hip hop in the 70s and 80s, it was it was like us, very underground, very independent. Then the mainstream major record labels, they started seeing like, man, this thing is getting a buzz in the streets and on radio. Let's start signing artists, right? So I think that it's good to have mainstream and independent. Like, independent is never going to die, right? Because when you have a mainstream one, I think it will help to discover podcasts. Like one of those random listeners that just go on their phones and they say, oh, what is this, NPR? And they start listening. Just because they sign and they subscribe to that show, maybe they'll get curious and they'll say, hey, I want to look for a show about cooking or about tech, and they'll slowly will find other shows. And I think it's good. The thing that I would like to do is sit down more with like the mainstream corporations and educate them too, because nobody's perfect, right? They're just doing their job, and I think it's important for us to also educate them on stuff that they're doing wrong, that I think it will help the industry overall. We can't just stick on just independent and that's it. No, we all of us, I want our industry to grow, right? We go to podcast movement, and I know you guys always meet those big time podcasters over there at that event, right? And I think it's a great way for us to have a conversation, man. Now, for those that are just being ignorant, they don't want to listen to it. They're like, all right, I'm NPR and that's it. Come on, that's not gonna help, man. I think it's important to have that conversation, man. It will help us all. It will help the industry overall.
I think it's also important that they're willing to have a conversation too. Because sometimes they're huddled up in their clan, in their tribe. That word I hate. They're all in their little tribe, and you go over there and say hi, and it's like, who's this pariah coming over to say hello? And so I think it goes both ways too.
Yeah, I mean,
guys,
look,
I wanted to
go ahead, bro.
Go, Rob.
Yeah, I was just going to mention about this because, back when I first started in podcasting, the 2005 and 2007 window, I had a really close relationship with the NPR folks. And I still have contacts over there, and I still know the folks over there. But over the years, that relationship has strained. And I think and I'm not sure exactly why this has happened. I used to talk with those folks on a regular basis. I used to be in contact with them. They were reaching out to the independent podcaster community because they were wanting to learn from us early on. But I think what's happened now is I think they feel like they're leading the industry now, and they feel like they're creating much better content than exists in the independent space. And I think they've gotten a little bit caught up in themselves, and I'm not sure that they necessarily see themselves as part of the greater podcast community. I think they see themselves as part of the public radio space, and I think that's where we've gone a little bit sideways on this. And it's kind of, Todd, your comments about them is just a reflection of how both sides of this feel in this relationship between these two communities, because it is, unfortunately, there's been a wedge that's driven between the independents and the public radio side that is difficult to cross that chasm now. There is definitely a chasm there. Whether we like it or not, it's there, unfortunately. And I'm not sure why it exists. Really, I can only speculate, but it's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate.
It is odd because nothing's changed on our side.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And we all want to talk and share. And because guess what? All what is that saying? All ships rise together. Or, we're all gonna, if we all work together.
Yeah. Well, Todd, I think we do kind of bash them a little bit for stuff that they do. Yeah. Just like this whole secret meeting thing. Yeah. But there is a little bit of a cause and effect too, right? Yeah. Maybe they do want to do secret meetings because they don't want everybody to know what they're doing. But that sends a signal out to the greater community that tends to want to be more inclusive, right?
Yeah.
Tends to want to be more, and maybe they don't want to be inclusive because they're in their own little club, right?
Right.
And I think that's sending a negative message about them. And I don't know that they care what message is being sent about what they're doing. They're just doing what they want to do.
Well, I think it all boils back to, and I'm always the conspiracy theorist here. It always boils back to that they want to kill RSS. They hate the RSS. They hate the download, even though Apple iTunes and the stats that they're showing is showing that the download is not going anywhere anytime, baby.
No. Yeah. And they're Go ahead, Danny. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was gonna say, we signed a deal with CBS Radio 2 years ago. On our 3 years ago. Wow, time flies. On our 10th anniversary, and I'm always having conversation with them. Not everybody is stuck in that bubble, that East Coast bubble, like you guys say. Not everybody, but there's other people too that they can't really do much, man. It's the higher ups. There's probably very strict about certain things and stuff, and it's about building that connection, that relationship with those that are willing to talk and are willing to learn. And I think we should do that, man. When the thing that bothers me is when we bash everybody, right? You can't blame everybody.
True.
Because I met cool people at Spotify. I met, great folks over there at Apple, Stitcher, and they really want to change the industry. They want the industry to grow, but sometimes they can't really do much because they're stuck in this thing that the higher ups are like, nope, we can't promote them. It's all about us. We can't work with them. It's all about us. And I think that hurts the industry, man.
Speaking of Spotify, look for some internal communications from Blueberry this week. So that's all I can say.
Oh, look at that plug.
I mean, you can't really talk too much about Spotify. They don't want you to talk too much about them.
Yeah, it's external communications in relation to Spotify is a no-no. You can internally talk to your host and that type of stuff, but external messaging, you have to be careful. And
it's unfortunate.
It's an interesting, and I think it's a corporate thing. I don't think it's a Spotify podcast thing. I think it's just a corporate thing at Spotify.
Yeah,
that's how they do business.
Yeah, it's a culture thing.
Yeah. So, but it is what it is. There was one other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about. What was it? And we got plenty to talk about. Don't worry. But there was one topic I wanted to bring up. Well, let's just talk a little bit about. I'm not going to be at Podfest because of my daughter's wedding. But I will have team members there. And matter of fact, Mackenzie got the surprise. She's going to be on a panel. So this is the first panel she's going to be on. So, Rob, I don't know if you're on the panel with Mackenzie or not, but be nice to her at Podfest. But, the Podfest thing is you guys are leaving this week to go to Podfest. So I'm kind of jealous. I'm going to miss it.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I got Francesco on that World of Podcast Hosts panel. So
okay.
So I'm going to spread it around a little bit. I'm not going to do it. I could have done it, but I asked him to do it.
All right, that's cool. Well, she'll have to. I guess what it is you got to sometimes let the birds fly, right?
Yep.
So anyway, it's good. So what are you doing besides your live stuff at Podfest? What are you doing, Danny?
Just that. Probably, I'm only going to be there on Friday because I have things to do with my family Thursday and Saturday. But I'm going to be there all day. After our show, I'm going to hang out with our community. They are all attending. And just hang out with the podcasters, man. Just talk to them, meet them, and everything, man. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. And the special thing about us is that my co-host, we have never done a live show together. We've done parties, we attend events and stuff, but a live show in front of the audience, we've never done that. So that's gonna be very interesting.
It should be
very cool. I can't wait to do that. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Rob and I got some exposure to that at PodCon in Seattle, and there is a medium for it. I always thought doing comedians maybe doing a live show in front of an audience, that kind of makes sense. But people are coming to they came to PodCon dressed in character of their favorite shows, like
That's
lore.
awesome.
People came dressed in the characters of lore. I just like. I mean, my brain kind of melted, to be honest with you. So who knows? Maybe you're going to have little like PodCon type festivities. Maybe some of your fans will show up in character or something. Is one of your favorite games? I don't know.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would be hilarious. That would be hilarious. Yeah, I like that, man. Like, and that's a perfect example. Like, you never know who's listening.
Yeah,
you
never know.
Never know, man. And I think we need more of that. I think having events like that will be cool just for the listeners. It's cool that they're having it on the West Coast, but hey, having it on the East Coast too, man. That would be cool.
Yeah,
be awesome.
When you have I think what's interesting is every once in a while, and it happens to all of us at some point, you get an email and you're like, whoa. And you're like, hey, I've been listening to your show for the past 3 years, and you said something that, made me want to respond. And you're like jumping around in your studio, like, holy cow, this person's listening to the show. You never know who's listening.
Yeah, definitely.
And it is interesting to get those emails. So if you haven't experienced that as a podcaster yet, it's like Danny keeps saying, you never know who's listening.
Well, Todd, you'll
be surprised.
Yeah, you've been saying about this show for a long time.
Oh yeah,
So, there's people that are lurking on this show.
We have a lot of lurkers on this show, a lot.
And they stay all quiet. They stay all quiet, not saying anything. They're
Well,
like, oh, okay. All right, taking notes.
and I'll talk to somebody and they'll say something. I'm like, the only way you knew that is by listening to the New Media Show. They don't say they're listening, but they say something. You're like, I figured it out, and it happens because people can't help themselves. When you see them, you talk to them, and there's this and that, and how things going, and then they'll say something, be like, "There's no way you knew that." So yeah, so it's kind of fun to figure that out that way too.
Well, Todd, I think as you look at the listener and viewer numbers of this show, it kind of gives you a little glimpse of that there's a lot of people out there that check this show out every week.
Yeah, we're close. Yeah. We're closing on 7,500 that are subscribed to the show. So it's but for a new media show, for a podcasting show, I think we're doing okay.
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
Yeah, it is
very cool. You guys should also stream on Twitch, man. That's a whole different platform there, man. You guys do that too, man.
Isn't it primarily gaming though, or are people doing regular long form? No. Really?
Also, let me tell you. Let me give you the scoop. What happened, man? So, we always go to E3, right? So I got an email from Twitch. They listened to our podcast. I was like, again, like I said, you never know who's listening, and they were like, hey, we want you guys to also record your show live on Twitch. That would be awesome. And we're like, we've been talking about doing video stuff for like a while, and we had a meeting with them, and I'm like, you know what, let's do it. And it's been going good, man. It's been doing really good. Now we're turning a year. I think by August, July, around there, we're gonna turn 1 year old with Twitch, man. So it's a whole new audience. But they mentioned that they're trying to add new type of content, not only gaming, but there's streamers that they do a live stream about makeup, right, or about comics, about different conversations. I know Lil Laporte, he has a live stream there for Twitch, so his network.
He probably should. The name is the same. I wonder if he has a deal with them on copyright.
Well, he just sued Twitter. Yeah, Twitter, yeah. Twitch. Yeah, there's another one for you, Leo. Go get them.
Yeah, but at least that's good that Twitch, they're trying to look for different type of content creators, man. They want to grow. They started doing NFL football on Thursday nights. They show it there on Twitch. They show wrestling now live. So it's good. I think it's good, man. You should try it out. And then if you have enough listeners, you guys could also get subscribers that could donate. They could pay if they have Amazon Prime. If you have the affiliate or partner from Switch, you could get a percentage from that and get paid out of that too, man. So it's not a bad thing, man.
That's cool.
Try it out.
Thanks.
Well, one thing I found, and Danny, how long you guys been doing live?
Live, it's gonna be a year.
So
we've done stuff live in the past for like special events.
Sure.
On livestream.com, when it first launched, we had like a Halo 3 launch event at I think Circuit City. This is like years ago, and I was walking around with my laptop, filming everybody. I would go outside because of the Wi-Fi, and I'm like, everybody say hi to the camera, and everybody in line. I'm holding my laptop the whole time, but it was cool. I mean, yes, of course, we're always going to get more listeners to the podcast more than live stream, but it's just another way to interact with people. For those that are watching your show right now on either YouTube or Facebook, you can have the interaction. They can start asking questions and stuff, right? It's a different experience, I think.
So let me ask you, I've said this before, and well, maybe I won't prejudice your comment. What doing live has resulted in what in basis of how your show is produced? What has it changed? Just tell me if there's anything different that live has done to your show.
Not our show hasn't changed at all. I think we did that because we just want to get new listeners on our podcast more than anything. Sometimes we get an interview and we have it live on Twitch, and Twitch will feature us on the front page, and that's millions of people that could watch it, and if they like the interview, they were like, man, let's go and subscribe to the podcast, So
Yep.
what we do is we do the live podcast, but we don't mention anything during the recording of the podcast. We won't mention anything about the chat, because I think we are a podcast first than anything.
Right.
But once we're done, we do like an after show just for like the viewers, exclusive for them. We interact with them and stuff. We promote the podcast, but it hasn't hurt the podcast at all.
Yeah. So one thing I've been doing live now maybe 6 years, and what I always said was live makes you a better podcaster. Because you get one take. Did you guys edit beforehand? And when you were doing before you did live, did you do any audio editing at all?
Oh yeah, we always do.
You do
because what we do is we record live, right? But
Yep.
I don't record from the audio from the video. What we do is we record locally, each of us, and they'll send me their audio, and I'll edit it. If there's any ums or cough or
Sure.
background noise, but I fix that up. I take it off. And there's certain things, maybe like a mistake, I realize like, let me take that off. It should have been a podcast. I'll leave it on the video. But it helped us. Yeah, you're right. I think it helped us become a better podcaster now because of that, doing the live stream. We're used to it. And at the same time, you see the emotion of your co-hosts
Mhm.
while we're recording. I think that's helpful too, man.
It's huge. And just seeing the facial
Yeah.
reaction, and you can see him like tensing up or whatever. And you can say, "Oh, he's got something to say." I think it's important. I think it helps with that dynamic.
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm still old. Well, I'm Todd. I don't edit. I get done. It's done. So it's
Any
No
mistake,
edit,
leave it.
Todd. No edit, Todd.
No
That's what I
editing.
tell him.
Yeah. I mean, but look, it works for you. Like, not everybody's the same. Like,
True.
we signed a deal with CBS. They could easily edit our show, but it's my baby. I feel like
Yeah.
I know our formula. I know when my co-host is gonna make that mistake or they
Mhm.
do certain things that I want them to be part of the podcast. They don't know. So I still to this day I edit the show. Every record Sunday morning at 9:30. And they send me their audio. Monday morning, I wake up early, drink my coffee for like a good hour or two. I'll edit it, release it, send it to CBS, and then post it live. And then we record it again on Wednesday night. And then again, the next day, Thursday morning, I wake up, get my little coffee, start editing in the morning, and then send it to them again. So we record twice a week on our podcast.
Yeah, me too. But my stuff is so time sensitive that the content is expiring the second it comes out of my mouth, and actually it's already maybe 5 or 6 hours old. So yeah, for me, it's the editing has never worked, and maybe that's been part of it. But I understand some people do it, some people don't. I would not be podcasting today if I edited. If I had to go through and edit, I'd be done.
You were good. Yeah, it'd be done.
Yeah.
But the thing is too, Todd, you always got to think about this too, Todd. Like, not everybody are up. Like they know what's going on with tech.
True.
Or certain thing with podcasts, because they don't go to websites. They probably only depend on your show. So that's the thing that I see with us. Like, we have a bunch of listeners that they don't go to the mainstream websites. They depend on us to have that conversation
To give you
about
the details.
Exactly. So you always also, as a content creator, you also got to think about that. That's the thing that we're making that mistake. We think everybody knows everything.
True.
We think that everybody only listens to podcasts because of iTunes. No. Like, there's people that probably find us through Stitcher or other apps that we've never even probably heard of,
Mhm.
or maybe they found you because of Spotify. Like,
Mhm.
I think we gotta get out that little mentality. Like, oh, everybody knows everything. It's gonna get old. It's not. A lot of people are gonna feel like, damn, what Todd said and Rob said, this is new to me, man. I've never heard about this, because they never went to that website to find that information out.
In this show specifically, Rob and I, we have the advantage of having this, complete insiders access to the space, and a lot of people that share stuff with us maybe sometimes shouldn't, but we love you anyway. It's
Yeah.
it is an interesting dynamic. But the show prep on this is we show up. That's the show prep. And if Rob calls in at 6 a.m., I know, or 7 a.m. my time, I know we're doing a show. So it's from this show, it's a little different perspective. But you guys probably have to do quite a little bit of prep, don't you?
Not really, man. What I do is I send bullet points of different topics. That's it. Everything was just straight up at the moment, freestyle. but I do want them to at least read what's going on. I don't want us to just say things because we don't know,
Right.
But another thing too, what we do is, which is super, super important. I want our listeners to send us questions via email, go to SpeakPipe or voicemail through Google Voice, and we do that. We add it on our podcast. We play live on Twitch, and we have conversations. I think that's super important because we interacting with them in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of podcasters don't do that at all. They just do their show and that's it. But when you let them be part of your journey, if they feel special, they feel like they're part of it. They're share the podcast with other people, and it will go around because of it. So we do that. We've been doing that since day one. Always doing that.
I had a listener out of the Bronx. His name was Sal. He doesn't listen to the show anymore. I miss him dearly because he would blast me, an email and be like, "You're wrong," and then that would invoke it'd almost be like a co-host coming in and saying, "Todd, you're wrong," and I'd have a 10-minute conversation with this email, which was really Sal, and it added this whole dynamic. So yeah, the emails back and forth from the audience. And if they're sending voice comments, that's even better because you get their emotion, the whole 9 yards in. Because you're reading something, and sometimes you can't invoke what they're really trying to say. So and a lot of podcasters don't get very much feedback. So I'm always challenging, and I know you guys probably do too. Hey, what do you think about this? You guys agree with what we said, or do you don't like this? Or here's the email. I probably say the email 10 times during the show. Just so they know, remind them, I want to trigger them to email them in. So how do you guys actually, and this is podcasters struggle with this, how have you been able to build the feedback you get? What mechanisms do you use to make people want to send an email?
I mean, don't get me wrong. There was a time that we were getting a lot of downloads, but a lot of listeners won't email us or anything because you also have to understand that they're probably shy. Super, super shy. I've gotten the calls like, "Hey, I'm a long time listener, first time caller." We get a lot of that, a lot, and you just got to give them time, man. Let the listener know more about you. They will get to know you slowly based on the conversation you have in your podcast, and we'll mention on the show. We'll promote it in the beginning of the show, middle, and at the end. We always do that. Let me tell you this little quick story. We were at E3, and we just into one of the execs from Microsoft. They were promoting their product that was coming out this past holiday and stuff. And we got out. We were walking. We had to go to another appointment, another company, and some guy randomly is like, "Hey, Danny, Pete Paris," and we're like, "Who is this?" He's like, "Dude, I'm waiting in line for me to play some game, and I'm listening to your show right now. You don't know me, but I'm so-and-so." And we're like, "Oh my God, that's crazy." So right there at the moment, I'm like, "Let's take a picture, man. I've never met you, but let's take a picture real quick." So remember, there's a lot of listeners that they are just shy.
Do you ever get grabbed at the airport? I've been grabbed at the airport, been walking through, and all of a sudden someone just comes up and grabs me.
That's something you say. It's going to smack them to call you or email you because maybe they disagree with you or maybe they agree with you.
Yeah.
They're probably trying to defend you, so you just got to give them time, man. Don't force them.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem with a lot of podcasters. They're forcing people to listen to the show. And to me, that's spam.
Begging versus asking, right?
Exactly. So, and Rob, say something, man. You're kind of quiet.
Yeah. I always love to get the really, really long emails from listeners. I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys have gotten those too. There'll be like 6 or 8 paragraphs of stuff that I mean, it's just like, wow, it's always blows me away when I get those emails. But it is a little challenging on the other side of the coin of being able to cover it in the podcast though. I mean, I don't know if you guys have had that dichotomy. Well, which part of this email do we want to talk about on the show? Because we can't talk about the whole thing.
I read
the whole show.
I read them end to end.
Really? Wow.
I mean, it depends because sometimes we probably talked about that, and people they probably listen to like our older shows, and they start emailing us, and we're like, already, I'll email them back saying, hey, we already talked about it on this episode. We'll tell them that. But we have a listener. His name is Keon. Everybody in our community knows Keon because Keon listens to our show. He's a truck driver, so he listens to our show every week. Every time we ever release an episode, the next day he'll email us, hey guys, I heard this episode, I have a question for you, because he wants us to create that conversation. So one day, due to timing, we did an episode like maybe 30 minutes. Usually our show is in an hour, right? And the past few weeks it's been like an hour and 20 minutes or so, right? So one day it was only 30 minutes. Oh my God, Keon hit us up saying, guys, I'm disappointed. Why this show is only 30 minutes long? Like, I played the voicemail and I had to explained him why we did that. It was just a moment, And everybody in the community that have never emailed us started emailing us like, no, guys, I totally agree. You guys give us content all the time. Don't worry about it. Take your time. And the thing that I said to Keon is, it doesn't matter the length of the show. What matters is the content. If the content, it's great, it could be 2 hours. If it's 30 minutes and that's enough for me to, like, I feel that's good for the show, I'll release that. So I had to explain to him. But it's cool that he emailed us, and then everybody emailed us because they were trying to defend us. Like, nah, it's okay. It's okay if it's 30 minutes. So that was awesome.
One thing that at this point, and Rob, go ahead and ask your question. You had a question. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just the thought that popped into my head was, oftentimes the conversations amongst the community is actually more important to the community sometimes than the communication with the show. I mean, I've seen that dynamic where the audience gets to know each other probably as much or more as they know the show, and it's kind of and at some point, once your community gets to be a certain size, those relationships can sometimes be stronger than the relationship with the show, but the show is like the common glue that glues the community together.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let me tell you what happened last year at Podfest. So I had an opening keynote, and we had the first look of the messages, right? So for my opening keynote, I've been promoting it a lot on our podcast. I've been mentioning it like, hey, check me out. It's going to be my keynote. I'm going to talk about my focus. The topic is all going to be about the community. It's not about us. It's not about GTR at all. So a lot of our listeners showed up at Podfest. They don't know anything about other shows. They don't know about podcasting. They're just fans of our show. They showed up. So I did my keynote, and I had to get out. I had to leave because my cousins had to go to the airport and stuff. So I had to say bye to them. So what happened, once I was done, our community got up right when the next person was about to speak, and the whole crowd left from our community. Chris Kremitzels was like, you see that? That was Danny's community. They came here just to see him. And I felt bad for the person that went up. I felt bad, but that's the thing. We have to let your community be part of the journey, man. When I got inducted to the Hall of Fame, I invited our listeners. We went together through the red carpet. We took pictures. We sat in the front row, and the first people that I thanked was them, because they're the ones that made us. It wasn't my family. It wasn't the industry. It was our listeners, man. And that's why I always have that relationship with our community, because of that, man. Because they are the ones that are spreading the word, promoting the show. They're the ones that download the show every week. When we have a sponsor, if they like the sponsor, they'll go and purchase that product just to support us. So I think that as a podcaster, we need to do more of that than just say, hey, listen to our show. That's not enough, man.
So I do have a question for you in regards to pacing, and you've been at this a while. We all have. I think, that we're going on, 14 years here, because October 2004 is when I started. And I'm at a point now where I have to have, I can't do 100 shows a year. I just can't. So if I travel now, like when I went to Vegas for CES, I did no regular shows, but we're putting all this extra content together for them for CES. So, do you take breaks? Do you get a break because you get your deal with CBS? You're on a contract obligation 2 a week, but do you get time off, or how do you work that?
No, we always take time off. It depends on the holidays. Like this past December, we released a couple episodes for like maybe the early December, and we took the whole month, and we came back the second week of January. Because we need time for ourselves, man. We need time to be with our family. Time to just relax. I think we've been working so hard, and not only December, but it depends on the time. Right after E3, I don't have a voice. Like I'm completely done. I'm done because we released, I think this past E3 we released like 50 episodes during the week.
Yeah.
And it was a combination of short interviews and just long episodes together, talking about E3 and stuff. So we take a break from that. But what I like to do, I like to record ahead. And there's stuff that I'd never release, and I'll release it the day that we're taking some time off. I usually do that, but yeah, super important. But if you're taking like, let's say it's 3 of us, right? So my co-host for the past few weeks, he's been doing stuff for his 9 to 5 job, and he can't join the podcast. So the other co-hosts, we continue recording. I'm traveling next week. Can't say where, but before PodFest, and my co-hosts know that I can't record, so they record without me.
Oh, that's cool.
So in a way, I'm taking that little break. So when I went to Dominican Republic, what I did, I had stuff pre-recorded from E3, and I put it that week for the podcast. And then when I was in Dominican Republic, I recorded some more podcasts with some local gamers because I wanted to learn more about the community over there and stuff. And my co-host was still taking those 2-3 weeks off while we did that. So we always create content pre-recorded. It might not be live, but we do it all the time. It's just you gotta let the community know in advance. Oh, we're gonna take this time off. At least they're not gonna get mad when they go on a Monday morning, they can't find our show. At least they know.
Yeah,
so communication is important.
I always tell new podcasters, and Rob, I don't know what you tell the folks you talk to, but I tell them your first 2 years you can't take a break. Your first 2 years you got to hammer. You have to, and if you do take a break, then like you said, do communicate it very well. But I went nearly 5 years and never missed an episode, and in doing 2 a week, that's rough. So, sometimes now I just have to take, and I tell them, like for my daughter's wedding, I'm going to the wedding. I'm not doing any podcasts, and it could be as many as 3 shows I miss. So I might look to add a co-host, or maybe I can fill in some of the CES stuff, but I don't normally like to take content from extra events and shove it into the regular podcast feed. I normally keep that in its own RSS feed. So that's something I do a little bit different, but I was just kind of curious how you handled your downtime.
No, you know what, Todd? I think it's important to take a break, even if you start even if you start. And the reason why I said is because if you don't take that break, you're gonna feel burned out. You're gonna feel burned out, and that's when you're gonna stop. After a while, you're like, you know what? My podcast is not worth it. Let me just not do it anymore, because you're not taking that break. You honestly, when I take a break and I go, let's say, to the beach, I'm always thinking, what's the next?
You're still working. You're still working.
I'm still working, but I'm on vacation. When I'm taking a shower, when I'm on a flight or something, I'm always thinking like, what's next, man. But you need that time for yourself, man. You need that time off, man.
And believe it or not, that time where you can actually sit and think of what's next is actually pretty good creatively as well, because it gives you time to say, okay, let's do this. And then you think about it. Yeah, it's like, like going to a store and wanting to buy something, you walk out of the store not buying. You said, did I really need that? No. So it's the same thing with ideas. Some are good, some are bad.
But don't take too much time off, though.
Right.
No. And that's when you become like, that's I'm done. But see, here's the thing. Man, I can't really say much, but soon, like I'm already done with the documentary, but there's this project that we're working on since October. That we're probably going to announce it soon. That I'm very excited because it's something that we have never done before.
Oh,
Yeah, I've never mentioned this to anyone, so I'm going to mention this first time I'm mentioning here. But I can't wait for people to listen to it, man, because it's going to be something really, really cool. Something really cool that we haven't never done before, man. So very excited. And I know our listeners, they're gonna freaking love it. They are going to love it, man. So I think it's a good way for us to push the medium even more because of this move, especially in the gaming industry and stuff. So,
Danny, you're a perfect promoter. You just know how to put enough of a carrot out there. Dangle that carrot.
It's in my blood, man. It's in my blood.
It's the tease. It's the tease that drives people crazy.
That's right. That's right. And it's what keeps people listen to every second of a show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had someone said, hey, so-and-so said something about you at a certain show. You really need to listen to it. And I'm like, what's the time hack? I don't know. It's somewhere in the show. So I had to listen to that whole episode. I finally got to the point. To find it. And I was like, oh, okay, that wasn't as big of a deal that what the person made out to be. But you get to get that tease and you have to listen to the whole thing to get the context.
Yeah. I know throughout the years, the thing that helped us out big time is, man, don't do clickbait episodes, man.
Oh yeah.
Just create your show. Just have an episode. That's it. Yeah. And I recorded a show and not even thinking like, it's not, of course we can have listeners, but I know what's going to happen after this. But then I see all those major media outlets that picks it up randomly. I'm like, what? And it's because the interview that we have maybe is something that person said that just caught the attention from the media, maybe a leak or something that I didn't even notice at the moment. And yeah, like when you record a show, don't do this clickbait stuff. And that's the thing a lot of content creators are doing now, like on YouTube or podcasts, whatever. They do something, they'll name it in a certain way, so people, when they search and they see that, like, oh, I gotta click this. And to me, yeah, at the moment you get a lot of hits, a lot of downloads, right? But that's short term. In my opinion, I think it's better to create content that's gonna last for years, long term.
There's a comment in the chat room from Mike. He says, the midpoint of what you're both are talking about is not surprising. The best route. We luck out that we're following television and movie schedules so that break time is built in, as well as the entertainment lines as the bell to jump back in for the next round. But here's the problem I have with that particular statement, Mike. Taking a break means 1 or 2 shows, not 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 months. People that do seasons, season 1 should end, and then a few days later, season 2 should start. I still believe it's a big mistake for people that do just a certain amount of content. And let's say they follow the TV schedule and they do 13 episodes for a 13-run show, and then they're not back for months. I really personally think that is a disaster. I don't think that. I think you have to shift to something else immediately. You got to pick up a new show or new content. I don't think that taking the long extended time off is very advisable. I think it impacts numbers tremendously.
Yeah, the thing is, a lot of people's attention span is very short, so they're gonna move on. They're going to move on to other things. If they know that show is by seasons, okay, that's fine. But people don't know there are shows like that. Mm-hmm. They know that we always release stuff every week. So that's why it all depends on the communication that you send to your old listeners and even new listeners that discover you too. So it depends. And like you said, yeah, if you take a few months off, people are going to move on and they're going to go and probably discover another show that's better than yours. So I think it's important to take a break. It's cool, but not too long. That's
not too long.
There's actually options. If you're doing a podcast like about a TV show or something like that, you can certainly talk about topics that are related to the TV show in between the seasons. I think that there's things that are happening all the time that you can talk about, maybe speculate on what's going to be in the next season, or get on some some other people that maybe are working on the show or something like that. I've been involved in TV podcasts, and my wife and I did the Boston Legal TV show podcast, and she brought on cast members and fans of the show or things like that in between the seasons. So you can certainly do that too. So there's certainly a lot of creative ways that you can create content if you're doing a podcast about a seasonal thing of some sort. There's no reason why that can't work. And yeah.
No, I agree, because a lot of people don't know this, but I'm a huge Big Brother fan. I've been watching Big Brother for years, and that's the only TV reality show that I watch. But I listen to fans podcasts about Big Brother, and they've been taking breaks for months. And once the season starts, I'm sure that they're going to start creating content about that particular season. Like now they're doing like a celebrity Big Brother now for the first time here in the US. So now the podcast is back. They thought they were going to release their podcast during the summer, but they're like, man, it's a new Big Brother stuff, man. Let's start creating our podcast again. But see, as a listener, I know that they do that.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, a lot of the podcasters, they don't communicate that to their listeners at all. So if you don't do that, you don't communicate to your listeners, and you take a break or you take some few months off, they're gonna move on.
Yeah, I always liken it to, though. In your case, I get it, and maybe my perspective on this maybe shift a little bit, but people build your show into their life. They know that my show releases Monday and Thursday night. They know, and this show will come out probably tomorrow. They will know that this show, or when shows pop, and they build their listing time. I know when certain shows drop that because I'm waiting for it. And when it does, bam, I'm there. So I really, when you're not there for me, what am I going to do? I'm going to look for something else to fill that space. And
you have to be a regular. Yeah, you have to be a regular.
Yeah. Agreed.
So anyway, cool stuff. Well, we're at an hour 25. I did want to, before we get out of here today, let's see if I can find the right menu. GamerTagRadio is the place to go at GamerTagRadio.com. And you guys are up to
733 episodes now.
Awesome.
733 or 732 around there. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's awesome.
Crazy how time flies. Awesome. Yeah. Very excited. Yeah, if you're into video games and stuff, yeah, check it out, man. So it's good. It's a great podcast, man.
Yeah, and also there is a little trailer that you have out, in relation to your documentary of your podcasting journey.
It's a 30-second trailer. Yeah. I didn't want to give out too much, but yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Do you have it, Todd?
I don't have it here. Let me see if I can find it. I don't know if I can play it. I'm set up.
Yeah, I have it on YouTube and Twitter, Facebook.
Yeah, we'll link it up in the show notes. That's what we'll do.
Definitely.
We'll drop it up there.
Good. It's good. I'm honestly, I'm super proud and super excited for people to watch it. And I've been sending this documentary, like advanced copies, to those that are not podcast listeners. They're not gamers, and I made them cry, I made them laugh, and I made them inspired.
Nice.
So I think I did my goal. I reached my goal, man. Just by me doing that, man. Because I want people to learn about podcasts. I want people to learn about that, man. And if you're a content creator, hopefully this will, change your mind and start hustle even harder, man, to get there, man, to reach your goal.
We can't go yet though, because Rob, you guys had, oh my gosh, we should talk about this earlier. So the big secret's out. Vox Nest is a new company that basically you guys set up and then rolled Blog Talk and Spreaker in. So tell us, what do you guys do?
Yeah, so we just basically launched a new company, a new parent company to Spreaker and Blog Talk Radio. So nothing is going to change about Spreaker other than some of the technology that's going into the new platform called Vox Nest is going to roll into Spreaker over time. But it's basically Vox Nest is more of a professional publishing platform is what we're creating, and ad monetization tool set. So that's basically what it is. If you want to check it out, just go to voxnest.com, and you can see there's 3 products in there. One's called Dynamo, which is basically any podcast that has an RSS feed can submit to Dynamo, and you can have dynamic ad insertion automatic, so you don't really have to do much to it. And have ads and do a revenue share with us, and then we'll do all the ad sales, and you can just sit back and do your show and set your insertion points and those kind of things. And then there's Hive, which is another, it's more of a professional podcast publishing platform that's not launched yet, but it's coming here in the next couple of months. And then the third product is called Cortex, and it's basically an ad targeting engine that's going to have some smarts to be able to better target ads into certain podcasts. So, that product is actually somewhat being deployed at this point through Blog Talk Radio, but it's moving over to the other properties as well, Spreaker, and to the Voxnest product. It hasn't fully launched yet, but it's coming. So it was an exciting time. It's really a reflection of the combination of Blog Talk Radio and Spreaker, because we had to create a whole new board of directors. So Francesco is the president of Voxnest. I'm now the VP and the head of partnerships for the combined companies. So that's my new role, which I've been doing actually for a few months now, but not under this new name. So down at Podfest Orlando next week, we're going to be basically having a booth down there, and that booth is going to be titled under the name Voxnest. Now, Spreaker is going to be there as part of like a co-brand to the Voxnest service. So it's just adding another top parent company to what Spreaker and Blog Talk Radio has been up to this point.
I see what you're up to.
No, but congrats, Rob.
The secret
that's
is
good though, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's, if you listen to this show, it probably would not come as a surprise,
No.
So, while Rob hasn't said what he's doing, but we both talk about stuff we're doing. So, and this should not come as a surprise if you listen to this podcast, even though he never told any trade secrets, but we talk about all this stuff all the time.
He will only give you hints here and
Yes.
there. That's it. No, but congrats, man. That's good. That's good.
Thank you. Thanks, man. I mean, I think that's been the piece that's been missing from Spreaker, is kind of this higher level podcast publishing platform, and then getting more into dynamic ad insertion. And Todd, exactly right. We've been talking about dynamic ad insertion and how that's coming to the space faster and faster. More people are adopting that technology, and you're right. We've been talking about dynamic ad insertion as a wave that's coming this way, and I think more players are going to be supporting it. More podcasts are looking to do it, and this Dynamo product is kind of a reflection, Todd, of what we've been talking about, of trying to bring that technology to everyday podcasters. And then, I think that the next big thing, though, is the host read stuff, being able to enable that at all levels of podcasters. So the Dynamo product can be utilized by any podcast. So it doesn't matter if it's hosted on Blueberry or hosted on Libsyn or Spreaker or whatever. It can be utilized off of any of those things.
Well,
can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question about that, or if you don't mind?
Sure.
So, in our case, we, because of the whole CBS deal, we always get ads and stuff, but sometimes there's ads that we feel uncomfortable to promote that in our podcast. So I'll mention that to CBS, and honestly, they've been super great. If we say no, we don't want this, they won't push it. And I think sometimes a lot of podcasters they would just take anything because they just want money. Do you have an option in your service that you could select the type of products that they'll be willing to put the ad on their show, or you still guys are still working on that behind the scenes?
Well, we have the ability for you to go in and select advertising categories. So and it's a pretty extensive list that breaks down different categories of ads that could appear. They're typically like 15 to 30-second ads, and the creative is moving more and more towards host read type formats. So what we're starting to see the agencies do more and more with these kind of radio-like ads, I'll be honest, is make them be more like what a term that I like to use is more talent reads, right? So they're less highly produced spots, but those still do exist to some degree. But I think this is an evolution that we're seeing on the online radio side too, is that they're starting to realize that these spots that they're producing need to sound more organic to the medium that they're being presented in. And putting in radio spots into podcasts is not a smart strategy. It's not a strategy that's going to bring results. So they're going to have to adjust. And Todd and I have been talking about this for a long time. And then secondarily, and this is also coming too, is the ability for that podcast host to be able to do the host read and upload it to the platform and have that dynamically inserted into their programs across all their archives and into their new shows. So this is like a first step, and this is a baby step. And as we move to the future and add greater capabilities, I think this tool will enable any level of podcaster to be able to monetize. Hopefully, that's the goal.
Well,
that's awesome.
For those of you that follow what we've been doing, we basically have the same thing coming. So
yeah, well, which is fine. I mean, it's a common. It's really becoming a common technology.
Yeah,
all of us need to offer.
Yeah, it is. It's a tool set that I decided mid last year we needed to build, and the team is about ready to turn it over to me to start testing. I don't know if it's going to be as slick as yours, but anyway, but our approach is also
I'm sure
going to be.
It will, Todd. I have confidence in you that it will be.
Our approach too is a little bit different. We know that not all podcasters are going to need this, so it's
true.
And it's probably for you guys the same way as well. But we'll see. It's gonna be a fun year.
Yeah, that's good. As long you guys doing stuff that's gonna help the medium, hey, go for it, man.
Yeah, that's the key too. Bringing tools and services to the community that they can use. I'm not in the content business. I'm not Gimlet. I'm not IRL. Yeah. We're here to provide tools and services. So is Rob. And I don't want to get into the. I just we'd have to be 10 times bigger to be able to be in the content business, and we know where our core business is at. We're going to continue to serve that group as I'm sure Rob and his team is as well.
Well, and we're going to evolve as we need to offer those tools and those capabilities that are needed in the marketplace. I mean, Todd, if you think back to the very early and Danny too, these kind of capabilities didn't exist back when we started doing this kind of stuff. We have accelerated this capabilities so far. It's hard sometimes to keep perspective on where we all started with this and where we are today. And it's dramatically different. And I think over the next 2 years, it's really going to change a lot more.
And I had gotten some tweets and some Facebook requests to ask about if I like the Adam Carolla podcasting course. And I, based upon feedback that I have gotten from numerous people that I trust, I can't endorse the Carolla podcasting course. I'll just leave it at that. It's cheap, so at $30 or whatever it is, maybe it's worth maybe you'll get a point or two out there, but based from what I've heard, a lot of the data is really dated. A lot of the material is dated. So, but if you want to hear Carolla's story and how he does things, and maybe it's worth it. I don't know. But I can't endorse it at this time.
Well, and from what I've heard too, I haven't seen it either, is that Carolla really isn't creating much of the content in the series. It's being done by other people. So are you really not getting his perspective on how he built a big show? And by the way, if there was another Guinness Book World of Records, there's shows that are much bigger than his show now that would hold the Guinness Book World of Record for the most downloaded podcast. So that could be contested at this point. But anyway, it is what it is. Yeah.
All right. We're long. I'm Todd at newmediashow.com or Todd at blueberry.com. You can reach me on Twitter at Geek News. Danny?
GamerTagRadio.com. You can find us there, or go to radio.com. It's a website under CBS. You can find us there too, man. So yeah, we're everywhere. everywhere. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, everywhere, man.
Rob?
Yeah, just go to robgreenlee.com. You can reach me on Twitter at robgreenlee, and that's with 2 E's. And I do the Spreaker live show every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific, and talk about podcasting, which is what I do every week. But you can certainly send me an email to rob at voxnest.com now. Rob at voxnest.
You got too many emails, Rob.
Ooh.
You
got the Vox email.
I got the Vox email. Yeah.
No, but I want to mention this because I forgot to mention the 25th of this month. That's when we're going to release our documentary. It's going to be totally free, so you don't have to watch it live. If you can't watch it live, it's cool. Because we're going to be there talking with our community while watching the documentary and everything. But it's also going to be available on YouTube for free too. So we'll share it throughout the community. It's fine.
Yeah, we'll definitely be sharing it here as well. Make sure it's up. But one thing's for sure, folks, if you have any juicy insider information, definitely drop us an email. We will we'll keep that confidential. We do protect our sources here. So everyone, thanks for being here. And Danny, thanks for coming on and spending some time with us today. I hope everyone enjoyed the new media show. We'll see you back here next Saturday. All right, take care.
You're
at Podfest. No show next week. Oh, it's not my fault.
There's going to be a show next week.
Not my fault this time. And
taking a break.
Yeah. And the challenge is then the following Saturday I'm in Tampa, so we'll see you guys in 2 or 3 weeks. All right, everyone, take care. We'll see you next time on the New Media Show. Bye-bye.